the day before Christmas vacation, and all through the class, everyone was wishing the long day would pass. Mr. Vitardi said, "Let's work too, not just play." But the children were all thinking of Christmas Day. So when he said to Mr. Dorland, "Now read this page, quick," he just sat there thinking of jolly old St. Nick. And when she said, "Keller, how do you spell bear?" the poor little girl just fell out of her chair. For like Miss Whipkey and Miss Dorsey, she was dreaming that day of bikes and toys and Santa's big sleigh. While Mrs. Lombardo tried to listen, she fell sound asleep, thinking of Santa and elves and snow so deep. Miss Bijak did try her numbers to do, but she wrote 1 plus 3 equals 2. For no girl or boy could do their best that day. It seemed like everyone just wanted to sing and play. Miss Metcalf and Miss Powell tried to whisper at first, but soon each thought that she'd surely burst if she didn't talk aloud about her wishes of games and toys and even doll dishes.
Then Mrs. Graver and Mrs. Ingrid started talking out loud, and before long it sounded like a crowd, shouting and singing and pacing the floor so no one heard the knock on the door. But everyone looked when the door opened wide, and a big jolly man in all red stepped inside. Mrs. Anderley and Mrs. McCullough stepped back in surprise, while Mrs. Halley and Miss Budish just covered their eyes. Then all of a sudden stood there still as a mice, while Santa looked over them once or twice. He spotted Mr. Lorenzi, his face all red, and raising a finger, here's what he said. "With toys in my workshop, I was busy as a bee. When I heard the noise from this classroom, it began to disturb me." Then he looked at Mrs. Von Druska with a twinkle in his eye, and Mrs. Veltrak thought, "If he looks at me, I will surely die." But he walked over to Mrs. Kennedy, and on his shoulder laid a hand. Miss Golem was so nervous she fell in the trash can. Santa just laughed, winked at Mrs. Strosky, and said, "Now, class, I've really come to see who's up ahead in reading and writing, and of course math too. So Mrs. Finn and Mrs. Rollins showed me what you can do."
And to the board they had to go. Miss Kovach started to giggle, and Miss Beskid stubbed her toe. They couldn't even read, they were so excited. Instead of saying wrote, they both said righted. "Well said, Santa. Let's give Mrs. Moore a turn and show me, Miss Prodrasky, what you have learned." They raced to the board, got the marker, and then yelled out loudly, "5 plus 1 is 10. "Oh no," cried Santa, "didn't you study this year? For surely you know that Christmas is near." "Miss Zmich, let's see if you and Miss Carnegie can spell," but the kids bumped into each other and fell. "Well," said Santa with his fingers crossed now, "let's see who can spell this easy word, cow." And as he looked to Miss Lamson for this easy test, he heard C-A-T from Miss Miller's desk. "Oh dear," said Santa, looking so sad, "even the teacher's spelling is bad. Whatever will I do with this whole class? I don't think a single one of them will pass." He's put his head in his hand and started to think, then gave Miss Smith and Miss Thorpe a quick little wink.
And Mr. Stanwyck looked at Miss Blair, then to Miss Poinsett too. And the others gathered round, for they all knew that if Santa would give them just one more test, they'd surprise him and do their very, very best. For of course they could read and spell too, but with Santa watching it was so hard to do. So they'd pretend he was a student, like them all, only a whole lot bigger and a tad more tall. They gave him a desk and said his name was Tim. Then all went to work and forgot about him. Everyone did spelling, writing, and math too, without a single mistake all the way through. Reading was next, and they all did fine, for no one missed a single line. When class was finished, and it was time for play, they looked back to see their visitor that day. But his desk was empty, no one was there. Old Santa Claus named Tim was not anywhere. Then Mrs. Garnett saw on Santa's desk a note, for Before he left, these words he wrote. You do know in your schoolwork that you were right, so I'll see you again on Christmas Eve night.
The girls and boys shouted and started to sing, but at that very moment, they heard a bell ring. The long day had ended, the hours had passed. It was time to go home.
Christmas at last!